Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting of Thursday, July 18th, 2013. We have a few housekeeping items that we would like to mention to you tonight. This meeting is being televised on the Henry County TV Channel 14 and will be rebroadcast each Thursday at 7:30 p.m. A video of the meeting is also available on demand on the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off your cell phones. That's for the audience and for the board members. If you're speaking tonight, if you wish to speak, you will need to fill out a public hearing speaker card. We will allot 10 minutes for those in favor of a case and 10 minutes for those in opposition of a case. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they all share the 10-minute slot and so forth. Please address the board members if you come up to speak and not necessarily the audience, because if you turn your back to us, I'm going to assume that you're finished and I'm going to ask you to please be seated. At this time, we're going to start with the invocation and pledge by Mr. Babb.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all the many blessings that you let us have. We pray that you will be our guide as we discuss and make decisions tonight. In his name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
This meeting is now called to order. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes. That there is no minutes for the meeting and removal of item CU 1307.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a second for the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the agenda with the amendments indicate by raising your right hand. That's unanimous. Is that okay? Okay. Do I need to say who recorded the second? Okay. That was Mr. Tony who had the second. That was Mr. Tony. Okay, we'll get it here pretty soon. Okay. Do I have? Since we're not going to approve the minutes, are there any comments from the staff? Okay. We're now going to move to the agenda items, and I'm going to ask the staff to call the first case.
Modification to zoning condition MC 1303. Drapic Investments LLC of Los Angeles, California requests a modification to the development agreement for properties located at 504 through 721 Woodall Road, Pine View subdivision in land lot 101 of the 12th district. The modification is regarding minimum house size and building materials for the Pine View subdivision only. Jeremy Gilbert is representing planning staff, and the property is located within the city of Stockbridge.
Good evening, Chairman and board members. The request that is before you is a modification to a development agreement. The development agreement was executed on December 21st, 2001 and was filed with the clerk of Henry County Court Superior Court and is recorded in deed book 4689, page 317. The development agreement has been amended twice between the applicant, not this applicant, by the original applicant, and the City Council on December 9th, 2002, and again on January 24th, 2006. The request that is before you for the amendment tonight is the applicant is requesting to amend the development agreement regarding minimum house size and building materials. Currently, the development agreement requires the minimum house size to be a third 1,800, a third 2,000, a third 2,200. The development agreement also requires a minimum of 50% of the front facade to be covered by brick, stone, or stucco. The applicant is asking for that percentage to be reduced from 50% to 30%. Also, as you can see on the overhead, the lots that are in question, the applicant is requesting to keep the same lot sizes that were approved in the 2006 amendment on these lots that are here, and then reduce the lot size on the outer ring of lots. And then there's 5 lots right at the entrance to the subdivision that they would like to delete as building lots and become part of open space. Staff makes no recommendation on this, but this item would be forwarded from this board to the City Council of Stockbridge upon your motion. I will answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions for the staff at this time? Okay, if the applicant is in attendance, we would like for them to please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jeremy Quinn of 1161 East Rock Springs Road in Atlanta.
And Jim Garrigus, 3966 Timberbrook Lane in Marietta.
Okay, do you have anything you'd like to add to the staff comments?
Just a point of, where was your overhead? Okay. Well, first, as a matter of background, we are just acquiring this. This property went through foreclosure and through various ownerships. It's been basically laying dormant for probably 6 or 7 years. Previously, it was part of a master plan that had Pine Grove was one community. This Pine View is a cluster home community and a retail segment. And they were tied together, and there were conditions saying you could only build so many residential units, and then you had to do some retail. Well, the retail just never went anywhere. It's just there as a lot. And so in 2006, which is quite some time ago, the developer at that time, in return for being unhinged from the retail, agreed to increase the minimum house sizes. And just a clarification, we're leaving that increased house size around the perimeter that backs up to the wetlands, and those are larger lots. These lots here back up to a railroad, and these lots in the middle are backing up to one another. Those are the ones that we want to reduce the minimum house size down to where it originally was before the developer agreed to bump it back up. So we're not going anywhere below where they were originally set as minimum sizes. We're just trying to, because we need that flexibility. In today's market, what you do need is flexibility. These may be more senior homes that would be single story and therefore less square footage. We don't know right now. The market will dictate, but we're just trying to get that flexibility. So particularly in those backing up to the railroad track and those that are in the middle backing up to one another. The materials was 50%. There again, it's just a flexibility thing saying no less than, but it could go, excuse me, as low as 30% stucco, brick, or whatnot as far as that accent. I guess the whole summary is flexibility. You want to add anything, Joe?
I mean, the intent of this is a project that was obviously started and worked through the planning system quite some time ago. It got completed in 2 quite distinct phases with a railway line running between the two, and quite a significant elevation change between the 2 projects. What was a project conceived and commenced by one developer, I believe, became 2 developers, hence the removal of the commercial, and in a period in 2006, which is a starkly different market than it is today in 2013, was when these conditions were, I suppose, agreed to and worked through to address the commercial situation. So we come at it with, I suppose, open arms just to try and to resolve the situation and create a community that's going to be to add value to Henry County and the City of Stockbridge in today's market, 2013 moving forward. I mean, the last thing we want to see is ghost subdivisions sitting on the ground for the next 20 years. I suppose we're just trying to find as Jim mentioned, a flexible situation where we can get things moving again.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? I just have a question. Are there any homes that are already developed in this subdivision? So it's all vacant? Okay, okay. I was just going to ask, do the neighbors know what you're doing or anything like that? So, but if there's no homes in there, then that's
And there's
kind of
virtually no
a
neighbours.
moot point, yeah.
It's a very standalone, isolated community.
Okay, okay.
We didn't discuss it, but these 5 lots up front, we're willing to just have those go to common area. We were kind of wondering why they were there anyway, but, and depending on what goes forward, that common area, we don't know right now, we just want to call it common area.
My other question would be, what is this, like, darker area?
That's wetlands.
They're wetlands.
That's a
It
wetland,
just-
okay. Okay, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Mr. Tony?
Yeah, I have a question, Stan. Isn't Stockbridge going to start handling these affairs here that they've requested not to be heard? Is that?
I'm sorry.
Does the city of Stockbridge, is this within the city of Stockbridge?
Yes, this
And
modification,
my understanding is that they've withdrawn from the zoning. Is that, I'm not clear.
that is the information that we have been provided by the city administrator, that the Stockbridge City Council did take action to withdraw from the zoning advisory board and its processes.
Ms. Matthews, I can not hear you very clearly or not loud enough.
Just as a, can you all hear me?
Well, for some reason, I'm real loud, but I don't,
Yeah, I'm not hearing her either.
that's a little better.
Yes, planning staff has received or has been in conversation with the city administrator for the city of Stockbridge, and we were made aware that the city has withdrawn from the zoning advisory board. So I'm assuming that answers, is that what your question was, Mr. Tony?
Yeah, because I'm not really sure where we should head with this as far as any kind of actions.
I can say that this application was received prior to the city of Stockbridge making any recommendation to withdraw from this board, so it's in the process to just be forwarded to the city, as the city would have final authorization or final approval or denial of the request. So at this time, it's just continuing through the process that it came in under.
And again, just to recap on the conversation during the work session, you all are a recommending body to the city of Stockbridge. You certainly can forward it on without a recommendation, or you all can forward along with a recommendation for approval and or denial. You all certainly still have that authority to do that.
Now that we have an applicant before us, do we have any questions for the applicant? If not, I'm going to ask them to please be seated. We're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. So if you're here and you want to speak in favor of this case, we would like for you to please come forward. Okay, seeing none. At this time, we're allowing 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of this case. Okay, I'm going to ask the applicant to please come back. Okay, does the board have any further questions for the applicant or staff?
Let me ask you a question. Are you familiar with what's going on within the city of Stockbridge regarding this request?
In what
That
context?
they've taken us out of the picture, so
I
to
suppose
speak?
we're learning as we go.
Yeah, we came here with no further
indication, yeah.
knowledge than the old process, so
Okay.
we're just trying to get something through.
So noted, so noted. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated. Would like to call the case.
MC 1303, Drapek Investments LLC of Los Angeles, California requests a modification to the development agreement for properties located at 504 through 721 Woodall Road, Pondview subdivision in Land Lot 101 of the 12th District. The The modification is regarding minimum house size and building materials for the Pine View subdivision only. The property is located in the city of Stockbridge.
I would like to make a motion to send this to the City of Stockbridge City Council with no recommendations from this board.
Mr. Risher has made a motion.
I second.
We have a second by Mr. Tony. All those in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Oh, forgot discussion. Okay, next case.
Variance VR 1309. James Kim of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 35 Mill Road in land lot 111 of the 6th District. The request is to reduce the front yard setback for an accessory structure and to allow an accessory structure in the front yard in the C3 zoning district. The property is located in District 2, and Jeremy Gilbert is representing planning staff.
Good evening again, Chairman and board members. The request that is before you is a variance request from development regulations for property located at 35 Mill Road. The applicant is requesting to vary from the development regulations to allow an accessory structure in the front yard, as well as reduce the front yard setback for an accessory structure from 70 feet to 12 feet. The location is the current location of Yuki Japanese Restaurant. The property was rezoned by the Board of Commissioners as part of a larger tract of land on February 3rd, 1987, with no zoning conditions. Currently, the structure that is in question is located behind the building. However, behind the building is in the front yard setback, as the building faces internal roadways there of the Sam Club development. When that subdivision plat was approved, there was a 70-foot front yard setback along Mill Road, in which the building was built facing the rear of that to the front yard. During the time that the development plans came through, there was 2 accessory structures that were approved in the front yard setback that were approved during the original development. The request that the applicant has now is to allow an additional accessory structure to be approved in the rear, in the front yard setback behind the building, that would encroach the front yard setback from 70 to 12 feet, and then also vary that to allow it in the front yard setback. The current ordinance does not allow accessory structures in the front yard setback. Staff has reviewed the request and does recommend approval of the variance request. I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Are there any questions from the board members for staff? Mr. Tony?
I have a question for the staff. There's some right-of-way issues in this particular area here. Could you explain the right-of-way issues over there at this particular location?
Yes, sir. At this location, the old Mill Road roadbed set further east than the current road, so there's kind of an irregular shaped right-of-way at this location, and basically it's wider than standard. And in this case, the applicant's wall sits in, on, or over the right-of-way line in a couple of portions, so I don't know exactly how far you want me to go into it, but...
Well, just the fact that the wall is actually within the right-of-way. Right?
Yes, sir.
As
Portions
it
of
sits
the wall.
at where it's at right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's kind of what I...
Correct. The existing wall, it is not part of the accessory structure that's being requested and during this request.
Right.
Are there any other questions from the board members for the staff? If not, I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward. And please state your name and address for the record.
James Kim, so located at 35 Mill Road, McDonough, Georgia, 30253.
Okay, Mr. Kim.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have anything that you would like to add for the staff's comments? And you'll have 10 minutes, for those comments, just so you'll know.
Yes, ma'am. I just basically tried to asking for that building's variance request for that.
Okay, I can't hear him. Can you? Yeah, there you
Actually, it was like not in front of a building, it's the backside of a building. Actually, it's documentary-wise, it's front side of a building, but when you got to prove it, it's the backside of a building, so try to ask reduced for the variance for it. Actually, like a 72, but kind of like 12 feet away from the structure building for this actual right away. And then this one is approved from before, like when I got like that's concrete, what is that, retaining wall. I did pour the concrete, very strong wall in there. So I'll show you one of board of members asking for that pictures. Maybe you can show up with this. Yeah, this is a concrete wall. Actually, it's a poured concrete wall, very strong. And then, like if we can make extended behind that, we can extend for that liability-wise. Someone driving cars is like a run over for that. We can do that way. Still, that one's like 12 inches, with the rebars and everything. You will see next one. That's all. Along with, from there, is all of them is a poured concrete wall, very strong wall, and then approved from that inspector for that time. And then second thing, if this is not going to be approved from this one, that's the second case. I'd like to purchase like from DOT asking for it right away, maybe 10 feet away from the proper line. I can purchase for that. So I don't want to go more further, so BOC or something, because I don't have time. Really, I spend a lot of money for like the customers. Actually, it's mine too, but customers try to make a more pleasure to look and enjoy for dinner or a meal or something. So that's why I try to decide it, and for proms and weddings and those things. So if you asking for a different way to making liability-wise, making more trees or concrete blocks or guide rails, whatever request, I will provide for it. And then please allow to get it permitted from this structure for this time. Thank you.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Before you put your structure up, did you get your permits and all to where the code? I mean, the board came out and looked at the location prior to you building your structure there?
I just discussed with it like 6 years ago. That time I said, okay, this time is opening first, and then we just did it. Just made already this site already, as you see that. Yeah, behind this building structure. Like that way. Top of the wall is this one, and before. As you see that, the shape was the same as that. I didn't touch anything for that. That proposed for that at that time. So I just provided, but that time I didn't get it permitted for that because a lot of things going on. Just I tried to not to opening at the same time. So that's why the economy is real slow. Try to make a more better way to look. That's why they decided to do it. But I didn't get it permitted. But I just plan to backside. I just asked to Bert Foster. He says, but decoration-wise, no permit. It's okay. That's why I finished the decoration already FLP with the FLP panel. But after that, and then looks really ugly with that. The backside of it's not. It's not clear enough, but a lot of debris in there, like weeds coming up every time. It wasn't easy to taking care of it. So I just removed everything, just put it on deck, and then after that, and this looks like a better way to to show the customers. That's why I just planned, and I just discussed with Bert, and you need to get a permit or something. Just stop everything that time. So I just request for the variance first.
Right. Well, the variance is not for the wall itself. It's just the issues that
right.
You're going to have customers that are down below that wall. That's where, but there's some other issues we need to resolve in that area. So, I don't have any further questions.
My question was the fact that, and maybe staff can answer this, for him to put a patio there, he didn't need the variance, but it's when he put the structure, above the patio, that's when the variance came into play?
The patio is part of the structure. Because the structure went up, the patio and all is all inclusive is what would require the permit, being that it's all an accessory structure that would be located in the front yard. So it's all of it.
So it's all together. Okay, so it's not, has nothing to do with the wall that was already there. It has to do with
That
the
is correct.
structure that was built that did not have a permit.
That is correct.
Okay. And that's what we're seeking the variance for.
That is correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant from the board members? Okay, the applicant may be seated. At this time, we're allowing 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of this case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. We're allowing 10 minutes for those to speak in opposition of this case. I don't see anyone coming up. Okay, Mr. Kim, we're going to ask you to please come back to the podium. Does the board have any further questions for the applicant or any comments, anything that we might want him to do further for this property or anything? Okay, they don't have anything for you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
We need to call the case.
VR 1309, James Kim of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 35 Mill Road in land lot 111 of the 6th District. The request is to reduce the front yard setback for an accessory structure and to allow an accessory structure in the front yard in the C3 zoning district. The property is located in District 2.
I'd like to make a motion to table this until the Board of Commissioners could meet with the Board of Commissioners, the transportation people, to resolve some of those right-of-way.
We have a motion by Mr. Tony.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Please call the next case.
CU 1308, JHJ 180 Henry LLC and RCB 180 Henry LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for properties located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Mount Carmel Road and Mill Road in land lots 143 and 146 of the 6th District. The request is for an assisted living facility in the RA zoning district. The property is located in District 2.
Ms. Moore?
Good evening, Board. My name is Wanda Moore. I'm with Planning and Zoning Department. This application, as read, is for conditional use for assisted living facility for 54 acres located on the southwest corner of Mount Carmel Road and Mill Road. The applicant is requesting a conditional use to develop an assisted living community comprised of multiple living and care facilities. Assisted living facilities are permitted in the RA zoning district with a conditional use as set forth in ULDC Chapter 4, Section 4.03.18. The site plan provided by the applicant depicts 1 access on Mount Carmel Road and 2 access points along Mill Road. The applicant is proposing an inclusive assisted living facility that provides senior adults multiple levels of care and assistance with a variety of housing choices. In addition to the housing variety, the residents will be provided cafeteria and personal services and outdoor amenities, including a vegetable garden, parks, an event lawn, walking trails, and sidewalks throughout the facility. The proposed development is in compliance with the development regulations for the RA zoning district and the requirements for assisted living facility. The subject property was included with a larger tract of land in a request to rezone from RA to PD plan development in November 2006. As part of the review, the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, GRETA, evaluated the Mill Road and Mount Carmel Road intersection and recommended an installation of a traffic signal if and when needed. It is reasonable to believe that the traffic at this intersection has not decreased since 2006. The latest traffic count taken in 2013 by Henry County Department of Transportation at the flea market on Mill Road indicates 11,000 trips on a Saturday. Though this trip count was taken on a weekend and further north of the proposed assisted living facility site, it is an indication of current traffic volume supported by Mill Road. If the proposed assisted living facility is approved, Henry County DOT will evaluate and make recommendations of transportation improvements. The request can meet all the requirements for an assisted living facility on the subject property. The request allows the site to be developed in the current RA zoning district. The proposed assisted living facility should not be unduly detrimental to nearby properties as the hours of travel differ from typical work peak hours. The 7th edition Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual indicates 2.81 average daily trip for occupied units within continuing care retirement communities. In comparison, the numbers for single-family detached housing is 9.57 average daily trips per day. The proposed development generates less traffic than a single-family development when compared equally. The assisted living facility may also provide needed services for the surrounding communities. The possible detriment will be the transportation component concerning the Mill Road and Mount Carmel intersection, as previously discussed. Careful consideration and recommendation as to how the site is developed should mitigate potential negatives concerning the proposed assisted living facility. Staff has recommended approval of the request with 15 conditions as amended in our workshop, and I'll put those on the overhead for you to see. Can that be squished down or just reorient it?
Turn it back the other way. Turn it back the other way.
This way? If you guys have any questions of me, then I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, do the board members have any questions for the staff? None at this time? Okay, at this time, we'd like for the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Adam Price with Falcon Design Consultants. My address is 4067 Andover Circle, McDonough. I'm principal engineer at Falcon Design. First off, I want to thank Sherry and Wanda for meeting with us on this project. It's been very good and cooperative, I think, trying to push this thing forward. I want to thank both of them for that. And furthermore, I sat in on y'all's workshop beforehand, and I've talked it over with my clients. They had already seen the conditions. Everything to them looks pretty good. I think one of the commissioner, I think it was District 2, somebody asked when are they wanting to get started, and they have told me if we get approval tonight, I'm calling the traffic engineer tomorrow to start the study. So that immediate. So I know I'm not supposed to talk in there, but I just probably wanted to say one word, but I waited. Anyway, the dumpster change made sense. I think Sherry threw that out there. That made perfect sense considering we had two roadways there. Everything else, the water authority stuff, me and Wanda talked about that. I understand all that. We know where the sewer and water's coming from. We're good. The only question is, and I just talked to David about this, was the traffic study and the results of it. And I kind of want to throw it out there. I don't want to hold up y'all's decision or anything else. That's not the intent. But I do want to throw it out there. Being an engineer, we're doing several intersections right now for the city of Griffin. And one of them ended up warranting a signal. And then we tested it for roundabout, and it worked. They wanted the roundabout. Look, it's going to look great. I haven't started yet, but it's going to look good. Same situation here. I think we're going to start with a traffic study, and you're going to run it two ways. You're going to run it now. You know, what's out there now? No development, no daycare, no senior facility. I guess my only issue is what, and it's really just a question, what happens if it warrants a signal now? And I know the last sentence in that traffic study was like, my client's responsible for this. And it may be just a question on my part. Like I said, even if y'all's answer is your client's still paying for it, we still want to move forward. That's not the point. I guess it's a question of what if, you know, and that was one thing that wasn't really discussed in there. It was discussed about the 11,000 cars, but you know, that's one thing I did want to bring up. But I will say this. I think it will warrant something after. And if we test it for a roundabout, David and I just spoke, you know, David ran some rough numbers. We think the roundabout will function well. My client will put in a roundabout, not a signal. He wants the roundabout. And I think the roundabout will look great there. I think it's a perfect intersection. The grades work good. As an engineer, I think it'll work good. So throw that out there for discussion. I know that the conditions are very similar for this and the next one, so that's really the only thing, the only question I had was that. So I just throw that out there for discussion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Price. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I just have a comment. Yes, we did have a discussion early on about the roundabout, and we think that that's probably justified at this time, just like you said, you know, with peak hour traffic, you know, weekday peak hour traffic and stuff as it is. Mm-hmm. So yes, it is a what if, you know, and even in our SPLOT, we are preparing for put a roundabout there, whether this development occurred or not. So, but early on, I had discussed, you know, the roundabout issues with I guess. Were you in the meeting when I met with?
I think my partner John Palmer was in there.
Yeah,
him
John,
and,
that's who it was.
Probably John.
But anyway, we
Jones.
talked about that,
yeah.
and I think he was in agreement that he would put the roundabout in at the time. So that was my understanding anyway. I don't know if that's. Yeah, was that your understanding too, Sherry?
When we spoke with John, I think he certainly agreed that that probably would be the best traffic calming infrastructure improvement for it. But again, we did not have DOT present, but that was certainly what we all kind of left the room with that in mind.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That's the only question or comment I had.
So does that answer your question? I don't know if that, I think your question was if it warrants a red light now.
I think I wasn't really arguing with the statement that David added. I was kind of just throwing it out there. I know that my client said, yeah, you know, if it warrants a signal, we're going to test it for a roundabout. We would rather do that. And I know probably the residents probably would rather see a roundabout there too. They're a lot better looking, and you can really dress them up in the center and make them really look good. I guess my question is, you know, the onus, and I know, and David brought up a good point to me. Even if it's in the next SPLOST, it could be 3 years from now. Even if my client's ready to put in his his senior facility first, I don't think he's going to want to wait 3 years. You know, so he would end up doing it anyway. So, you know, it might be a moot point question. I just wanted to kind of bring it up because I kind of sense that, you know, well, you know, if it already warrants it before the development, you know, and then that last sentence says that the developer's going to pay for right-of-way acquisition and design and, you know, construction. It was for discussion, and I think, you know, if you guys don't have any other comment, I'm fine with it. It's just, you know, they're ready to go forward, and I wanted to pass that along to you.
So the signal would not be a deal breaker, and I guess my question would, and maybe it's to Mr. Tony, your understanding it was just the roundabout, not necessarily the signal?
That's what we discussed in the beginning, so that's, our expectations, of course, the traffic study could indicate even now that it warrants a signal. We haven't done a study there, so I don't really know.
And that was really the point of my comment was, we're going to, when I ask my traffic engineer to do the study, I'm going to say, okay, I want you to warrant it right now, as is, no improvements. Mm-hmm. And then I want you to do it afterwards. And then we're going to see the difference. So that way,
you
DOT
take
can look
trip
at
generation into account anyway.
Well, that's right.
So even in your traffic study, you will take trip generation into account. So that will be covered in there.
Yep.
Will that change any of these conditions? Staff?
Just for clarity, the condition for the traffic study is specific to each of these requests. And so you can get clarity from DOT, and I don't want to speak for him, what planning and zoning will be looking for as part of the condition. We specify that we'll review that traffic study as well. We're asking for the traffic study specific to the request. And as such, if that traffic study has certain recommendations and requirements, then as such, that would be what would be followed through in the remaining of that condition. So I think the whole Henry County would concur that something needs to be done immediately. That's why it's come up on the SPLOST list. However, the condition is specific to the zoning conditional use request.
Okay.
David might want to say.
Sorry.
I just want to say the way we had it worded in the condition was to determine whether a roundabout or signalization with turn lanes should be done. In some cases, a signal is preferable over a roundabout, particularly if Mill Road gets very dominant over Mount Carmel. If it starts pulling in 80% of the traffic, sometimes it shows a signal may be warranted. So that's basically, I'm good with the roundabout if it's the right thing to do there. I don't have an issue with it. I just want to make sure it matches what the proposed or expected projected traffic will be.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant? If not, Mr. Price, you may be seated. Thank you. At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of this case. Okay, we have no one coming forward. At this time, we would allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of this case. All righty, Mr. Price, I would like to ask you to come back to the podium. Are there any further comments or questions for the applicants from the board members? Can we just push this up a little bit more so we can see that the number 15 about the traffic study?
Yeah, just another comment on the traffic studies. We're putting it on both parcels. Don't mean you'll have to do two traffic studies. You can, you'll just do one traffic study. Just to make that clear.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Tony, because I did hear y'all's discussion in there, and that does make sense. Thank you. Is the dumpster, did we fix the dumpster comment, by the way, on these conditions?
I will clarify, the discussion prior was in reference to the daycare because the site constraints, Ms. Matthews indicated that might be a problem for the developer in specifying the placement of the dumpster. In relation to the 54-acre tract, that particular requirement has not changed, and that the requirement does state that the dumpster enclosure, the opening, should not face towards Mill Road or be visible. Would you like me to read that condition?
That's number 7, so if you just want to pull that down so we can see that.
We did not change it, as the opinion of staff is that the acreage size and the development would not be problematic for that to be facilitated. And since it's such a large tract.
Do you understand that? This one, it didn't, they didn't make changes because it wasn't worded as where it was facing. That was the other property.
Yeah, for the daycare?
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we can backface it. I mean, this is a master plan. It'll change a little bit before we get finished with it. So I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
Just one comment, Mr. Price, and I think we're all on the same page in terms of this. If approved, it's approved based on the conditions that's outlined here before us today. So if it warrants a traffic light, you are prepared to move forward with that, correct?
Yes. I mean, you know, in my experience, Mr. Nelson, typically on intersections like this, if the study, because we just did 3 of them down in Griffin in the last 4 months, if the study shows a signal on an intersection like that, typically if you run the numbers for a roundabout, it's going to work, typically. Okay. Now, not always. So if they have to do a signal for any reason, then yeah, if you go forward the development signals, you know, that's the way it's got to go. But
and I think everything is written accordingly. If it meets DOT requirements, it's all set to go.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated, Mr. Price. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to call the case.
CU 1308, JHJ 180 Henry LLC, and RCB 180 Henry LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for properties located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Mount Carmel Road and Mill Road in land lots 143 and 146 of the 6th District. The request is for an assisted living facility in the RA zoning district, and the property is located in District 2.
I make a motion that we approve the request with the staff's 15 conditions.
I'd second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Tony and a second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Let it know to be it's unanimous. Thank you. Next case, please.
CU 1309, JHJ 180 Henry LLC, and RCB 180 Henry LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located on the northeast corner of the intersection of Mount Carmel Road and Mill Road in land lot 143 of the 6th District. The request is for a daycare center in the RA zoning district, and this property is located in District 2. Wanda Moore is representing planning staff.
Good evening again. As stated, the track is at the intersection, the northeast intersection of Mill Road and Mount Carmel. It is approximately 3.6 acres in size. The applicant is requesting the conditional use for a daycare facility within the existing RA zoning district. The proposed structure is approximately 16,000 square feet and is indicated as a one-story structure for the daycare facility. The site plan depicts 45 parking spaces and an outdoor play area. The road access is from Mount Carmel Road and Mill Road. The applicant will be required to have a 40-foot planted buffer on all sides contiguous with property zoned single-family residential. The applicant is requesting this conditional use as allowed by the Unified Land Development Code, Section 4.03.04, which states that child care facilities are permitted as conditional use in the RA zoning district upon approval by the Zoning Advisory Board. The immediate area is predominantly residential in character. The proposed site is surrounded by the Rowanshire residential neighborhoods, including the Village, the Legends, and the Gates. The amenity area for the neighborhoods is located on Mount Carmel, east of the proposed daycare site. The clubhouse is a reuse of a single-family home that was constructed in the 1920s, according to the Henry County Tax Assessor records. Sidewalks connect the common area with the surrounding neighborhoods. Each of the Rowanshire neighborhoods have similar entry monuments and fencing. The cohesiveness of these monuments and fencing should be considered when planning for signage and fencing if the proposed daycare facility is approved. In addition, the residential character of the area may be further enhanced if the applicant borrows from the existing architectural style of the clubhouse. These features include a large covered front porch, masonry-based columns, dormer, generous amounts of windows, and high-pitched roof, and etc. This application is compliant with the ULDC development regulations specific to the RA zoning district and daycare facility. Let's see. The latest, I'm sorry, let me back up just a minute. As the previous case was stated, that this property was also included in a rezoning request from RA to planned development in November of 2006. As such, the development was determined as a development of regional impact and was submitted to the Atlanta Regional Commission and to Greta for the traffic review. As part of that review, the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, Greta, evaluated the Mill Road and Mount Carmel Road intersection and recommended an installation of a traffic signal if and when needed. Again, it's reasonable to assume that the traffic at this intersection has not decreased since 2006. As already indicated, the latest traffic count taken by our Henry County DOT on 2013 indicates 11,000 trips on a Saturday. This request can meet all the requirements for a daycare facility on the subject property. The request allows the site to be developed in the current RA zoning district. The possible detriment will be the transportation component concerning the Mill Road and Mount Carmel Road intersection. The traffic volume and turning movements generated by a daycare facility compared to a low-density residential development will vary. Careful consideration and recommendation as to how the site is developed should mitigate potential negatives concerning the proposed daycare use. Staff has recommended approval of the request with the following 10 conditions, and I'll place these on. And I do want to indicate condition 2 was adjusted to include the word neighborhood in replacement of neighbor. And as indicated before, the condition number 5 concerning the dumpster enclosure, we removed the requirement for the applicant, and it now states that the dumpster shall be placed on a concrete pad and enclosed on 3 sides. The enclosure shall be constructed of materials consistent with the primary structure with a decorative gate enclosure, shall be a maximum of 8 feet in height, period. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, does anyone from the board have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward, state your name again and address for the record.
Adam Price, 4067 Andover Circle, McDonough, Georgia.
Are we saying Bryce or Price?
Price.
It's Price, okay.
Price.
Okay. For some reason, I'm having a tough time hearing. I think Sherry started it all with her microphone. I can't hear her, so I'm straining tonight. That's okay. All right. Would you like to add anything to staff's comments for the board?
No. Like I said on the last one, the recommendations seem fair, and my client's agreeable. I don't see an issue. In regards to your discussion in the workshop, I heard somebody mention about the proximity, might have been David, proximity of the access points to the intersection. Obviously, we'll evaluate that when the traffic study comes back. Obviously the one off of Mount Carmel will be tough to move further away. It's about as far away as it can get. But the other one, we've just preliminarily lined it up with the church, so.
Okay, so does the board have any questions for the applicant?
All right, condition number 6, you're going to be the engineer designing the project?
I hope so. You never know.
Anyway, condition number 6, what method are you going to try to use to do that?
Well, on the previous project, that was a little bit easier. On this one, not so much. I think, maybe some speed tables within the daycare, but you can see the route. Obviously the building.
Can we get that picture back up that was?
Yeah,
that would help.
Master plan.
Yes. Okay.
Obviously, the building may or may not be that shape. That's kind of an oddball shape. But the parking areas, I don't see them being able to change too much. And the traffic routes to drop off and pick up children is pretty good. I think adding speed tables and signage with no through traffic is...
It's a difficult situation there.
It's very difficult on that end. Across the street, it's easy because we just cut off one of the parking lots, and if they can't get straight through, they're not going to cut through anymore if they got to go all the way around their elbow, to get where they want to go. But on this one, it's a small tract, and it'll be even smaller if the roundabout goes there. The roundabout's going to take some of that acreage.
Right.
So, I think a way to get around that, speed tables and maybe through traffic signs.
Well, the church already has that problem out there, and I think they ended up putting up chains and all that stuff. But.
Yeah, and another thing, and this is just thinking common sense here. If a lot of times, I know when I took my children to daycare, if I went to daycare when I come home from work or I go, it's so busy in there. If anybody tries to cut through and they don't have children, they're going to be waiting longer than they would be at the stop sign.
I agree with that. And I really don't think it's going to be a real problem at this particular, because it's easier for traffic to make the right without cutting through there.
Well, as a designer, my preference is with this design, or if we shift the entrance off Mill further to the, north, my preference would be to add some speed tables anyway. Some type of speed humps, speed tables, to slow everybody down, because there's going to be kids in there. So we're going to do that anyway.
Okay. No, that was just my question.
Okay.
Do any other board members have any questions for the applicant at this time? All righty, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. All righty, there's no one coming up to speak in favor of the case, so at this time, we'll allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of this case. All righty, no one's come up. I'm going to ask the applicant, Mr. Price, to please come back up to the podium. And since there has not been any comment, maybe it's given the board a little bit of time to think if maybe they have any additional questions or comments for you regarding this property.
Sure.
No? Okay. Then you may be seated. All right, we can call the case.
CU 1309, JHJ 180 Henry LLC, and RCB 180 Henry LLC of McDonough, Georgia, request a conditional use for property located on the northeast corner of the intersections of Mount Carmel Road and Mill Road in land lot 143 of the 6th District. The request is for a daycare center in the RA zoning district, and the property is located in District 2.
I make a motion that we approve this request with the staff's 10 recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Tony and a second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All in favor of presenting this case, the approval of this case, raise your right hand. It's unanimous, none opposed. All right, call the next case, please.
RZ 1304, Hope Properties Incorporated of Forest Park, Georgia, requests a rezoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to C2 General Commercial for property located at 1640 through 1664 Highway 81 East in land lot 171 of the 7th District. The property consists of 1 acre, and the request is to allow for C2 land uses. The property is located in District 1, and Wanda Moore is representing planning staff.
Good evening. To the home stretch. As stated earlier, this application is to rezone from C1 to C2. The property size is roughly 1 acre. The subject property was rezoned from R2 Single Family Residential District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District on December 18, 2000, with 6 conditions. This was done prior to the adoption of the 2030 Joint Henry County Cities Comp Plan Future Use Land Use Map and the Unified Land Development Code in 2009. The property is located along Georgia Highway 81 East, which is classified as a major arterial road. The Georgia Department of Transportation traffic count indicates an excess of 15,000 vehicle trips per day for this portion of Georgia Highway 81 East. The property has interparcel connectivity with the adjoining parking facility located along the easterly property boundary. The property has no sidewalks that connect with the existing sidewalks along Georgia Highway 81 East road frontage. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property to increase business opportunities in leasing the property. Currently, there are 11, let me back up just a minute. This property was rezoned prior to our comp plan and our Unified Land Development Code adoption in 2009. And subsequently, this area has been identified as an activity center. And as such, the target land use mix for this Crossroad Activity Center is non-residential use to increase up to 30%. That said, there are currently 11 tracts of land zoned commercial that adjoin one another along the southeast and southwest corners of Georgia Highway 81 and Old Jackson Road. Of these properties, 1 is zoned C3, 7 are zoned C2, and 3 are zoned C1. Percentage-wise, 73% of the current commercial zoned land in the area affords C2 and C3 commercial business opportunities. This information is relevant in the evaluation and review of current land uses and the appropriateness of change for future uses. If approved, the proposed C2 commercial designation would allow uses that support the target non-residential land use mix of 30%. The property owner has an existing lawn and garden equipment business that he would like to have the option to expand to the area. A lawn and garden equipment business without outdoor storage is permitted within C2 zoning district. In addition, the applicant has inquiries from potential tenants, including a request for a veterinarian business and a pawn shop that were not able to comply with current C1 zoning regulations. Subsequently, the applicant believes that the sustainability of the retail center will be enhanced by a change of zoning classification from C1 to C2, which will accommodate a broader base of commercial uses. Staff has recommended approval of the proposed rezoning request from C1 to C2 with 4 conditions. And I'll just read those briefly. The first condition is that all 6 zoning conditions approved by the Henry County Board of Commissioners for the subject property on December 18, 2000 shall remain. Number 2 is the applicant shall preserve 10 feet of right-of-way for the future widening of State Route 81 as identified in the Joint Henry County Cities Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Number 4 is all businesses shall be required to obtain approval from the Henry County Environmental Health Department prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
That would be number 3.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And number 4, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner so as to require any violation of any existing building, development, stormwater, and or other applicable codes. And I'll answer any questions that y'all may have.
Okay, does any of the board members have any questions for staff? I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you were stating that there were 3 that were zoned C1 in this area, does this property, is that part of the 3, or would this property make 4 total for this area?
That's inclusive of the property. Yes, ma'am.
That's all questions I have. Anyone else have any questions? All righty. We would like for the applicant to please come forward at this time. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Scott Bennett. I'm an attorney for Hope Properties. I think staff's pretty much spelled it out. My clients, what brought this about was my clients lost a tenant because of the zoning and they couldn't get anything done. This is an income property. It's just for rent, and when they have to compete with neighboring properties, they're at a disadvantage. They lose business that way. I would state that the principles of Campbell's Equipment are the same principles of Hope Properties. There's no real plan, just to be clear, to move a Campbell's Equipment into this strip center, but the notion would be if they had an extended absence or they weren't getting any revenue for a time, they would consider putting a satellite store there. I don't think they have any ambition on growing that business in this economy, but if they have vacant space that's not doing anything, they'd like that opportunity. The veterinary clinic is what really spurred this on. When they lost that lease, that was a pretty good opportunity for them. So, they just be in keeping with what else is around there in the same zoning. I understand your concerns about pawn shops. I think there's good ways to regulate pawn shops. But the truth is if they can't lease from my client, there's one wanting to go down there, they're just going to go next door. And they're going to go until they find somebody and pay the right price, and they're going to get in. So denying my client doesn't keep them out, and restricting my client just puts my client at a disadvantage from other clients. I live in Henry County. I think the Board of Commissioners might be wise to put some limits on how many pawn shops we have. I know cities do that quite frequently. But it's a straightforward issue. They're willing to abide by the conditions. They don't have any complaints with them. They recently put in the septic system. It's a new system. They understand the limits. They understand what they can and can't do, and they don't have they don't want that kind of intense use in their building anyway. They don't mind foot traffic, but when you get the grease and everything else going, it hurts the business. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them, but I think we're just asking for what the neighbors have in essence.
Okay, does the board have any questions for the applicant at this time? My question was, the water usage is what really surprised me. So I would think a veterinarian would use a lot of water just from surgeries and things like that, but maybe not. I didn't know if there was.
I don't think it was a problem from that standpoint.
Right.
I think the most water usage will come from bathrooms and things of that nature.
So
a
it's
lot of
more
customers coming in and out and using the restroom and staying like a restaurant. That's where volume of water is going to come from. I don't think it's going to come from washing your hands or cleaning up or anything like that. And certainly they didn't see a problem with it. But, we understand that condition. Before anybody can move in, we'll have to get that approved. And they don't have a problem with that. Certainly they don't want to tax their own system and tear it up for the benefit of, one tenant. They don't want to, they just put it in, so
right.
That would be a limitation they'd impose on themselves. But certainly we're agreeable to getting that done before anybody comes in.
Okay. Were there anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, you may be seated. I don't see anyone out in the audience, but I do need to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case, just in case there's somebody I don't see out there. Just sneaking up. 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition. I don't see any folks coming up for that either. Okay, if I could ask you to please come back up to the podium. Mr. Bennett, thank you. The board members have any other questions or concerns about this case they would like to address at this time? No. Okay. You may be seated, Mr. Bennett. Thank you so very much. We need to call the case, please.
RZ 1304, Hope Properties Incorporated of Forest Park, Georgia, requests a rezoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to C2 General Commercial for property located at 1640 through 1664 Highway 81 East in Land Lot 171 of the 7th District. The property consists of 1 acre, and the request is to allow C2 land uses. The property is located in District 1.
I would like to make a motion that that the request be made change from C1 to C2 with the staff recommendation.
I second the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Head, and who was the second? I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. Babb. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your right hand. The motion? All right, the motion carried. None opposed. Thank you so very much. At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for public comment. So if anybody wants to come up and have any additional comments, we have one. We do have one person out in the audience. Okay, no comments. All right then. At this time, then motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we're going to adjourn. Thank you. Don't need a vote.